have any public hearings?
I'll grab it for you. It's just down here.
Do I need it? Well, I should open the hearing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
He needs it.
I can knock on the table too.
Keep us in line.
There's your something to wrap on.
Here we go.
Oh, it exists.
Yeah.
Now he feels better. There we go.
It's the privilege of being chair.
That's right.
Well, I got a coaster now.
Oh, nice.
That's some dense.
That's new.
Yeah, new for a year.
And we are ready when you are.
Okay. I will call to order the Monday, February 28th, 2022 meeting of the Oregon City Planning Commission. As far as I know, we have no comments on items not on the agenda. Nothing showed up. Okay. All right. Public hearings, we don't have any. We have communications. And the first one is OC 2040 Comprehensive Plan Update, Input on Draft Goals and Policies. And I believe this is Akila Hurd-Rovich.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. So good to see everybody. I'm Aquila Hurd-Rovich, and with me on Zoom is Sarah Breakstone from OTAC. And so I have a few slides that we're going to go through tonight, and then we will go through the red lines on the goals and policies for the OC 2040 work update. And we can talk about any wording changes that you're interested in. So when you met jointly with the City Commission in January, there were several questions that came up. And so we want to try to discuss some of those tonight. We thought it would be a little more effective to have kind of individual meetings with the Planning Commission and then another one with the City Commission. And then you all will come back together in a joint session on April the 12th. And we will have gone through some of this. So tonight we're going to address some of those questions and discussion points. So let's see. Not sure. There we go. All right, so I just have a few slides to go through and then we'll dig into the goals and policies. So our meeting objectives for tonight are to revisit the comprehensive plan streamlining approach and to review a little bit of an understanding of equity and planning and discuss how goals and policies will be applied during the land use process. And then we'll get into the language. So it's important to understand that one of the objectives for OC 2040 was to streamline the comprehensive plan and make it a little more intuitive and user-friendly. And so trying to cut back on some of the goals and policies that are in there. The comprehensive plans they're intended to be high-level guiding documents that help guide decision-making. And so part of our approach for the update was to reduce some of that bulk so that we could keep the goals and policies at a higher level and kind of create some clarity by reducing some of that bulk. And then over time, the City Commission will direct projects and programs that implement the plan. And those implementation actions are not part of the comprehensive plan itself, and they come later through kind of goal setting and identifying what needs to be addressed. So we wanted to talk a little bit about equity in planning. And one of the questions that came up during the joint meeting, and it's come up, I know for me, it came up when I talked with the Transportation Advisory Committee. I don't know if it's come up in other advisory committees as we've presented these goals and policies, but there's a question around the word equitable and how is it being used appropriately and what exactly does it mean? So we wanted to just provide a little bit of background about why that word was chosen when describing transportation investments. I guess before I get into that, on the slide, what we've provided is a definition I think there probably could be multiple ways of defining what equity means, but the American Planning Association has defined it as just and fair inclusion into a society in which all can participate, prosper, and reach their full potential, unlocking the promise of the nation by unleashing the promise in us all. And so when OC 2040, I think, first started, when the work first started, it was in the summer of 2020 when there was a lot happening in the world, in our nation, and a lot of discussion around equity and inclusion. And so one of the lenses through which OC 2040 was viewed or kind of put together is an equity lens. And so mobility and transportation are seen as important for moving the needle toward equity. For example, underserved groups, often individuals who are transit dependent, and sometimes the provision of facilities vary widely. And so complicating this further from a transit perspective is the need to serve the most people. So within already subsidized and underfunded condition, the greater cost per rider, which occurs in low density areas, as opposed to more compact developments where more people can be served, sometimes results in diminishing levels of service. So as you get, less dense, it becomes more costly to serve those areas with transit. And so you start seeing inequities in that perspective. So sometimes those who need the service most often don't have it, just kind of depending on where they live. So just something to think about, and perhaps we'll talk about this more, and I would imagine the City Commission will talk about it more as well. Okay, so one of our other objectives was to talk about how the comp plan policies and goals and policies will be applied during land use reviews, and when you might see them in front of you in a land use decision. And so there are several different types of discretionary reviews in the code that require that the goals and policies of the comp plan are addressed somehow, the ones that are applicable. So, for example, the conditional use permit has this language: the proposal satisfies the goals and policies of the city comprehensive plan, which apply to the proposed use. And that language you'll find in some of these other applications, some of these other land use. And so it's then on the responsibility of the applicant to kind of identify which comp plan goals apply to their project and how they're addressing them. So while they're the comprehensive plans are high-level documents, some of these discretionary applications do require addressing some of the plan goals. Typically, it's the type 3 and type 4. So the applications that you're going to hear, because there's discretion, right? When there's a little less discretion, that's a type 2 and a type 1 where staff can review and approve it. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and dig in just a minute here. So how this is gonna work is that, so Sarah is gonna take notes. So what we'll do is actually, Lisa, if you wouldn't mind, we can take down the PowerPoint. And so Sarah's going to share her screen, and you will see the red lines. And so I'd like to thank Planning Commissioner Mike Mitchell and our City Commissioner Denise McGriff, who actually gave us red lines. Okay. Sarah, can you make that like 1,000,000 times bigger? Okay, I think that. Keep going. One goal at a time. Yeah, I think we'll do one goal at a time. Yeah. Okay. Is that a little more workable for everybody? Okay. And you all have what I see up here on your screens close to you, right? Okay, great. Okay, so the idea, yeah, go ahead.
Would you like us to ask questions or comments as the presentation goes along, or wait until the end?
Yeah, as it goes along. So the idea here is really kind of a working session. We'll go through each goal and policy, and you can see where there have already been some suggestions. And so what we're looking for from you is any other suggestions. And if there are suggestions that are the ones that are either in red or a different color that you don't agree with, or have a different suggestion for, that's what I'd like to hear. So I guess just one more kind of point of clarification, that this is really for feedback, and eventually we'll come to the point of, recommendation for adoption and that kind of thing. But so this is truly like just kind of a work session, working through all of the wording. Okay.
Can I make a quick suggestion?
Yes.
How about, because we got several sections to go through, how about we hit them like one section at a time, like policies on goal 1.
Okay.
Go through those and then maybe tackle those instead of going line by line.
Sure.
That work for everybody? Okay. All right. So let's go through one section and then put some comments in that.
Sounds great.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so goal 1, I can read it, or I can just kind of point out where some of the changes were, and we can start it that way.
It doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
Have we all read it?
I've gone
I
through
think we can go through and
Great.
I have feedback or I don't.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
That'll save us an hour.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank who's ever done these red line edits since the last time we met, because this document fit a lot better, I thought. So thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. And so Denise, Miss Commissioner McGriff. Yes. So it's, in general, I'm really a lot happier with it.
Excellent.
But I have one comment. Well, my biggest comment tonight is on, and thank you for explaining the equity in relation to transportation issues, because I had a whole bunch of comments there, and I'll just strike them all now after reapplying this lens and thinking about it differently.
Okay.
Because it's what you were saying, the cost of, budgetary concerns for the city commission, if they can afford to do all the things, when it's not in such a condensed neighborhood and the farther out people, it costs more to serve, and all levels, mass transportation or whatever. So on my first one, on this goal 1, I am wondering why F is there. So I did not write these goals. I did not serve on the 2040 committee. So what is the intent of include representatives from nearby communities in public engagement efforts where appropriate to provide an outside perspective to Oregon City land use planning? Now, is that just for our rural neighbors? But the word representatives to me implies an organized group. So my recommendation would be to strike F and incorporate it with C. Seek opportunities to develop and enhance relationships with the community-based organizations who are working in Oregon City and the larger region. So the outside the community or the larger region. But I did not write this, so I don't know what the intent was of this. And you could incorporate, I had rewritten the sentence to add the public engagement as well as developing the relationships. But I don't know what my colleagues think, and I don't know, like I said, what the intent of the goal is and who are they really trying to reach here. Mayor Lyle Smith said, you know, we don't want to be like Portland. I don't want Portland weighing in on what we're doing. So I don't know what the intent is here.
Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Policy out of the last year. I recall you about being infected from areas outside of our communities. It was more about recognizing that are there are things that are less neighbors. It was more about just trying to outside perspective. About land use planning. That's sort of my recollection. It's not super vivid at this point because it was a while ago, but I think that was sort of why that language got put in there. I agree, though, that it could be morphed into C if that feels like a better way to do that.
You're looking in C, you're looking to develop and enhance relationships. So why couldn't you increase public engagement in the same thing? With organizations, you could say citizens and organizations who are working in Oregon City and the larger region. But including representatives made me feel like, you know, our planning commission or city commission sometimes are made of representatives for certain areas or, you know, and if they wanted that, then that's fine. That's what they want. But I thought it was kind of strong.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Well, I think maybe the where appropriate helps a little bit.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking, for example, the pedestrian bridge. We'd certainly want, in our planning, we'd certainly want to have West Lynn involved because we want to know what's going on at their end of it. Or maybe, you know, the Clackamas Park master plan that we're getting ready to work on, maybe because Gladstone has a facility, so where appropriate. And as to the officialness, maybe representative still isn't the right word, but
Citizens?
the reason that Commissioner McGriff and I changed from liaison to representative is liaison does kind of carry an official, you know, somebody's assigned as a liaison to a committee. So we were trying to get away from it sounding like an official designated person, and maybe representative isn't right. Maybe citizens is better.
Or what if the language is just include nearby communities?
There you go.
Where appropriate.
You know, that was a great example, Commissioner Mitchell, and thank you for clarifying that because I hadn't even thought of that, and that makes total sense.
So maybe something like this.
Yeah.
Include, yeah, I like that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Nice.
Done.
I got a quick question.
Yes.
How is this goal number 1 different from what we're doing now?
Oh,
I don't know the answer. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I think it's a question we should ask ourselves.
I don't even know where to look. Commissioner Mitchell, you know how to find the goals in the old plan?
Yeah,
It's
they're in-
beefy. Is
they're
it
in
in
there.
front or the back?
They're in the state 1 through 50 order.
Well, there it is.
Public involvement.
Goals and policies?
Yeah,
Number 6?
I think.
Okay. All right. See if I can find it.
I guess the other part, just adding to that question is,
Okay.
I know this process is we're enhancing or trying to make it better, right? What we're doing generally?
Well, I'll jump in again and then let others talk. But I mean, I think that yes, in some cases, there's an intent to enhance, make better. But I think that,
it's split up a little different.
the city has a lot of existing goals and policies in the comp plan now that speak to this same sort of approach that goal 1 speaks to. So this isn't necessarily saying that this is something different than what's happening now. This is just a sort of restatement of probably goals that are in your existing comprehensive plan now. There may be in the policy language maybe some stronger relationship about, or some stronger language about kind of building those relationships with CBOs, for example, and reaching out to community members who have barriers. So there may be some stronger language there, but I think the goal language that's here is very similar to what's in your comprehensive plan now. So I don't think it's necessarily trying to be different from what's existing,
Okay, thank you.
if that makes sense. Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
there's a statement here in Goal 1 and the introductory part of it that says in the second sentence, land use decisions that impact their communities. And I think that land use should be stricken from that sentence because this comprehensive plan is more than just land use issue.
What line is that?
That's in the Goal 1.
Okay.
The introductory statement starts with
oh.
implement and maintain. And then in the last part of the second line, very last says land use.
It's here.
Including
And it's
land
here.
use planning.
And I think that land use should just be stricken because this is more than just a land use document.
Well, but a little before that, it mentions including land use planning. So, yeah, it includes land use, but it's not exclusive to land use. But then at the end, it mentions land use again. Yeah.
Could, Commissioner LaSalle, could we say and understand all city government processes, including land use? Because this,
What the red line says. That's why we added that.
I don't see the all.
Oh.
I just saying add it, just more emphasis, but I get it, works for me, but I'm just trying to.
What if just the second land use was stricken? So that it's city government processes, including land use planning, and participate meaningfully in decisions.
Yeah.
There you go, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That works.
Yeah, that looks good. There's no need for that second land use in there. Okay, anything else? Okay,
Should I move down to goal 2?
I think we're going down to goal 2.
Yeah.
All right. Make it easier than they.
What? Yes, it does. Oh. What? I don't know. How do you want me to talk?
Oh, speak freely.
I really like in goal 2 that in number C that you facilitated historic preservation for federal state. That's a great redo on that point. And my question is, another on E. How are we providing activities and programs for residents and visitors? I know we have Park and Rec, we have some community ed programming, and this is just a budgetary thing. Do we have the band, or does the city have the bandwidth to provide all those things? Is it something that we have done or we will do? I'm not opposed to what they're going to do there. It's all really admirable. I just don't know if it locks you into a budgetary thing that is not realistic.
Can you hear me all right if I leave my mask on?
It's easier without.
It's easier without.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right. We're far enough apart. Anyhow, so a couple of things. One is just a reminder that this is not implementation focused. So it would like guide future goal setting, guide future actions. But two, I think some of this kind of lies within our economic development group and their tourism planning. So I think there is some focus on providing activities and programs. So
Sure, there you go. Thank you.
Anything else, or should I keep going?
Anything else? Let's keep going.
All right.
Oh,
I got
Mr. Staggs.
All right, one thing. How do we define cultural resources? What does that mean exactly? And to add to that question, what does it mean in the context of, I'll say, the future of Oregon City? And I'll give you an example. So we have the historic neighborhood of Kenema, which is a registered historic neighborhood in the city. At the same time, we have, I would say, a very rich, diverse architectural heritage in Oregon City of various different time periods. We have modern buildings, we have historic buildings, we have, if you drive through the city, you see a rich diversity. And to me, those are cultural resources. And it's not just about the historic cultural resources, it's about the rich variety of resources we have, both historic or non-historic. And I'll use the building we're sitting in right now is an amazing new modern amenity of the city, and it's a cultural resource. And I think it would be great if we had some recognition in this document that we not only care about the historic resources, but we also care about the contemporary and the future cultural resources. And I don't know how that is woven into here. And I think this might be the right place to say it somehow. Although it might be better in another one of these sections, but it seems like cultural resources might be a place to have, and just to recognize that we care about the broad diversity and diverse cultural aspects of the city, not just the historic, quote unquote, historic nature of Oregon City. I'm just putting that out there as a.
I will say this goal is intended to speak directly to statewide planning goal. Oh my gosh.
is it
I should have
fun?
these 5. Yeah, which is, and so it's really intended to be focused on historic resources and those, officially identified cultural and historic resources. You may see some language to get it, the sort of more modern architectural, et cetera, resources when we get into the economic goals and policies. So let's make a note here, but then we may see some language later on that kind of gets at what you're talking about when we talk about urban design and sustainability and sort of development that occurs.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that, although just to reiterate, the historic nature of Oregon City, when you say historic, a lot of people think, oh, well, that's the house that was built in 1890, or that's the stuff that was built before the 1950s. But it's all actually historic, right? So from day one until now, it's all historic stuff. So I think the beauty of Oregon City is that it has that kind of it has that diversity. It's not just one thing. You know, we're not just focused on one historic period. We have this rich, again, cultural resources. So,
And I think the language here is broad enough that it sort of incorporates that, or at least the way I interpret it, you know, identify and protect important cultural resources and historic amenities. And then it talks about providing activities and programs for historic and cultural resources. I think when you start thinking about how to implement some of these policies, that's where you get into the what and the where, right? So I feel like this language is broad enough that it wraps that in, but
right. Yeah. Yeah, you may be right. It may be broad enough already. What do you guys think? Any comments or thoughts?
Could you add diverse cultural resources?
Or I was even thinking, you know, on that same note, if you want to include newer things, such as the word progressive, you know, because newer is progressive, it's, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't really have a preconceived idea of what it should emphasize. I think the beauty of Oregon City is that it has that kind of diversity going back from the beginnings of the city, you know, and then you have, you know, the elevator tower, for example, is a modern thing in Oregon City. It looks modern. Its function is very modern. It connects the lower part of the city to the upper part of the city. And I would hope that we're not overly focused on the, you know, the what people normally think of as historic stuff, like the house that was built in 1910 in the Kenema neighborhood. But we're future focused. We're looking at the future of the city, and this document is all about the growth and future of Oregon City. So.
That's a good point.
Commissioner Schlegenhofer?
Yes.
I just have a quick comment. I think what Commissioner Staggs is saying is right on, but there actually is a definition of cultural resources and historic. There's actually a professional definition for cultural resource that gets to what Mr. Staggs is saying, which is it's a landscape or an object or a natural feature or a structure that is associated with people historically people people are associated with. So cultural resources is this really big envelope that professionally you take in to look at all the pieces that make up, like what makes a city or a national park or a farm, or what makes all the things what it is, not just the only building. And so cultural resources is a great definition to talk about all the other stuff besides our historic districts. It doesn't quite take in the other concept, which is, I think, really interesting, which is our soon to be created, you know, in a sense, resources or things that we culturally align, that like this building, for example. But if we are talking about cultural resources as it relates to Goal 5 and our Oregon land use, that is a known kind of professional definition, which incorporates, I think, what Mr. Staggs was saying at the beginning. So that is a good word to use for this.
Okay, so cultural resources is broad enough to kind of encapsulate all the different possible historic eras, periods, construction styles.
Right, and not just
Okay. All right.
buildings, but all the other ephemera, the thing that makes Oregon City, because of
Okay.
people who were here were associated with it.
All right, and then I'm not seeing anything really that limits us with these items. It mentions commemorating and, you know, preserving, but it doesn't say limiting anywhere. So we're not limiting anywhere to historic design or so. Anything else in that section?
should I leave this note in here and try to maybe
Well, we can
tweak the
always
language
just
a
leave
little
that
bit?
note in there as a suggestion and see
Okay.
what the city commission thinks about it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, are we going to goal 3?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I got a couple things, but I wanted to see what the other commissioners had to say before I brought them up. So, who has what?
On F,
Commissioner Stoll.
yeah. A house is a standalone structure, and if you live in an apartment, you're houseless. I don't understand why we have changed, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the new definition of that word, or with that new word for the old definition of homeless. It seems odd to me. Other than that, question, are we going to create these programs or just support them? I don't want anything in this plan that suggests that the city should provide those services. I have a long professional experience with homeless services, both government and nonprofit provided, and the nonprofits, in my experience, do far and away better than any government provided program. And I would like to not have anything in here that even remotely encourages the city to start their own program for that.
Yeah, or should we even be in that? Now, I don't know, where did the word houseless come from? Because you can live in a RV and you're not living in a house, but you're still doing well. So where did houseless come from, and why did we venture away from homeless?
It's the trendy new term. Unhoused is one, houseless is another, because homeless is generally perceived to be a negative, and so they try to change they.
Okay.
There's been a sort of a trying out of different terms for the same situation,
Yes.
for the same definition.
Without making it a derogatory term. And that's what.
Is unhoused a better choice
Unhoused
here?
would be fine, yeah, that's
that
fine.
sounds
I just,
better.
the two parts of that word houseless mean they don't have a house, and it rubs me the
You
wrong
don't need
way.
a house to
Yeah.
have a home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you feel like the language pursue services and programs that support Oregon City's unhoused residents, do you feel like that language is too strongly pointing the city in the direction of creating programs?
I do, yeah.
What if it were to say support services and programs, and not pursue them or create them, so to speak, or something that might mean?
I do think support is a
the
better
same.
word, or encourage, or, yeah. Because pursuing sounds like the city's pursuing it.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with Commissioner Stoll, because
Promote?
these kind of programs, they can become expensive and very time consuming for committees or staff, whoever. And I think it's beyond Oregon City's capabilities. Really, I mean, not even Portland can handle it, for crying out loud. I think we ought to piggyback on perhaps what the county comes up with or something.
Yeah, or the nonprofits. There's a few nonprofits that do a lot of work in Oregon City, and it works, well for the most part. There's some that, we've had some issues with, but for the most part, I think how deep the city should be diving into the unhoused residents support. I think we can't go too far because we don't have the ability to go very far with it. There's plenty of state level aid, and I think we could, maybe send the people that are doing the right work, send them in the right direction, but support and promote kind of covers that.
Or even if it's support and promote others' services and programs, showing that it's not the city's,
There you
us,
go.
it's others.
Okay, so what can we do with the language that kind of, encourages or clarifies that it's not us doing that? Partners? I think that someone was typing that.
Support and promote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I personally, I think support covers it. Obviously, this is going to be above our pay grade. This is going to be a commission city commission policy decision, and that's kind of why that question is there, because we don't know, I mean, what we can do, and I
that's good.
have to agree with Commissioners Stoll and
There we go, I like
LaSalle.
Yeah, that's good.
It's beyond our capability, but
Yeah.
certainly support makes sense. So I personally, I think putting the word support in there is a good suggestion from us.
Okay.
Are you looking at just support partner services then?
Or do you want to get rid of the partners?
Just support
Services and programs.
Okay,
Yeah.
so ACE to partners, just support services and programs. Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Anything else in goal 3?
I got a question.
Commissioner Staggs,
Where are the civic amenities section?
which line is that?
Well, at the beginning of this document, civic amenities is one of the 5, but I only see 4 categories, unless I'm missing something.
Oh,
Um,
oh, at the very top. Amenities. Was it in the old one? Yeah,
it feels like something's not showing up here.
well, maybe it was part of the old heading.
Um,
I'm not gonna find it.
We're going to go for?
Oh, I had a couple of things in goal 3.
okay, go ahead, and then I'll figure out what happened to goal 4.
Commissioner Staggs' issue, the civic amenities. Yeah, I don't see that anywhere.
Well, there's this document is something. Where's the language? Well, I'll figure that out. Let's hear your comments on goal 3, and then we'll see what happened
Okay,
to
all
goal
right.
4.
So talking to me or Commissioner Staggs?
Unfortunately, I can't see you guys, so I don't know. Whoever said they had a couple comments on goal 3.
Okay, all right.
I think it was you, yeah.
Okay, it was B. It was improve equitable access to comprehensive health care for all residents through cross-sector partnerships, and maybe I just found it, and coordination with service providers. How are we involved in that? In healthcare?
Good point.
Access to healthcare, not healthcare.
Right, access to healthcare through partnerships, but how are we partnered with healthcare providers?
It could be a bus to take people to appointments,
So
stuff like that.
it's transportation?
It could be transit oriented. I mean, I'm just kind of speculating on what was in the intention here.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. What are we talking about? Because it doesn't say equitable transportation to healthcare providers, it says equitable access. So
Which would include transportation.
it could, but it could also include
Do we know who
getting people
generated?
healthcare. I mean, it could imply that.
Could
So
imply what?
that we're helping them get healthcare. We're getting them access to healthcare. I think we should clarify that. That we're not
I
getting
think
them.
it can also mean,
It can mean a lot of things.
it can mean a lot of things, and that's
That's what I'm trying to
in some
avoid.
ways the intent. This is supposed to be a pretty broad, high-level policy, but I think one of the things it could mean is making sure that your, like your zoning requirements, your zoning code allows healthcare clinics in all areas of town, stuff like that. So I think there's more to access than just transportation. It's also where these types of services are allowed to be located relative to neighborhoods and that kind of thing.
Okay. All right. And everybody thinks it's clear enough what we're trying to do there?
I'd like to suggest striking the word comprehensive. Comprehensive means everything, and that's not available in Oregon City, and it never will be.
That's a good point.
The nothing against the hospital, it's a great hospital, but it doesn't have a cath lab, it doesn't do strokes, it doesn't do traumas, there's all sorts of things that just aren't available in Oregon City.
Yeah, we can't bus them out to OHSU, so, okay,
No, I can, that's what I do.
okay.
Good idea.
Okay, how about doing that? Perfect, all right, okay, and then the next one was D. Support access to affordable, healthy food for all Oregon City neighborhoods. How do we support that? Are we supporting bringing in healthy grocery stores?
So to me, without, what the community talks about when I read, what I think about is zoning, and do all of the zones allow for grocery store or other places where farmers
In lieu of anybody else having a comment, I will say that this came up a couple of times when we were having discussions with the PAT. And this was trying to speak to, like food deserts and making sure that there are opportunities for grocery stores in neighborhoods and grocery stores that are dispersed. So there's a land use planning element there. And then there are certainly, other types of programs, city and partner programs, that would speak to ways to implement this policy.
Sarah, do you mind just defining a food desert?
I don't know what the official definition is, but it's an area in a community that doesn't have a full service grocery store within a certain radius. And I don't know what that radius is, if it's 2 miles.
I think it's a mile and a half, if I
Maybe
remember.
more, a mile and a half. Yeah.
So the point would be to allow like a full service grocery stores as opposed to, convenience stores that don't have fresh produce available.
Yeah.
Can I suggest something?
Yes, please.
I think letter D needs to have some clarifying language that makes it more specific, or just clarifies exactly what that means. And the same with,
Well, and the other thing, it also mentions affordable. So we're supporting access to affordable, but
yeah.
that's kind of the market dictates price. I don't know how we can.
Right.
Well, my question is, where did
Well,
this?
we're not saying we're providing it. We're saying we're supporting access to it. So we're removing barriers that could possibly prevent a vegetable stand from opening. That's the kind of
I
thing.
like that wording. So what if we make it removing barriers or eliminating barriers to access to eliminating barriers to affordable food access or something like that, rather than remove barriers or.
Yeah. I think it can be improved, although I can't say exactly how, but that can be improved.
Eliminate
language.
obstacles to access to affordable, healthy food. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, there's like too many words in there somehow. I'm not sure which one's to delete, but it seems just a little wordy.
I think this is another one where you should say support and promote. Words that say we are doing all we can to encourage these things to happen, rather than we are going to make it happen.
Affordable, healthy food availability for all
Yeah,
our city
support and
neighborhoods.
promote availability of affordable, healthy food.
Yeah. I have a question.
Did we ruin it?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. Quick related question. Where did these, and I'm sorry if I don't, I should probably know the answer to this question, but were all these policy suggestions they were from a public process with the community, right?
Correct.
So they were specifically generated through the OC 2040 activities, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they were created through a pretty long, process of working with our project advisory team, several community sort of outreach surveys, feedback loops, lots of conversations, a review of your existing comprehensive plan goals and policies. Yeah, so they were kind of developed over time. We started with sort of just goals, kind of ran those through a few processes, and then started developing policies and kind of ran those through similar venues. So yeah, it's a combination of the project advisory team and community surveys and existing language and best practices, and yeah, a lot of stuff wrapped into these.
I'm wondering if we should even add some language in here that says something to the effect that we are doing this. Well, could we put something in here that has a land use implication? So we are promoting, land use and planning and zoning in a way that, or maybe it's already there in our zoning code and our we already have, but we could say that we are actively trying to, what we have is fine. Never mind. I think it's fine the way it is now.
Okay. I did have a quick question for Commissioner Mitchell. You've been involved in this from the beginning. The healthy food, was that, I think Sarah brought it up, that came from people's concerns that their neighborhood only has a plant pantry. They don't have any. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. What do you think the city can do to improve that?
Can I ramble for a second?
Yes, please. I like rambling.
Because getting the verbs right in this thing was a real challenge because, and they're not right. I think they may be closer. But when I was thinking about things, some of them are aspirational. And it's going to take, this is a 20-year document. And hopefully we can get there. But the other way, and actually, Mr. Conkle got me started thinking about this in this direction, kind of negatively. So when we have a land use decision that comes before us for a grocery store, and it's going to require variances or a conditional use permit, we can look at this and say, we wanted to support this and promote this. So we need to try to make it happen.
Right.
So it's in some cases, we may not be supporting it, but we're supporting it by not putting up an obstacle to it.
Right. And this document actually has power above our, a lot of our.
Everything in our code should be supported by what's in here.
Yeah. And this can remove some obstacles. So.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know if that helps or not, but
It does.
I think
it's
so.
not every application that's going to come before us is going to help, but we don't want to hurt
Yes.
what we put in here as a policy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
That's good.
Okay.
Wholeheartedly agree with you.
That was excellent. Thank you. Okay. We good to go to goal 4? Okay. Who wants to start?
That mean everyone agrees?
I've got a question.
Okay.
How do we do letter B? Can someone give me an example?
Yeah, that's a good one.
So I think is accomplished, or we strive to accomplish it through some of the code amendments that actually you're going to hear about a little bit later from Christina with missing middle code, and just trying to create more zoning opportunities that allow for different types of housing.
Now, I see your concern because it says, ensure, basically it's saying, ensure our policies and regulations will increase home ownership. That means our policies and regulations will definitely increase.
And we can't
Can we make
do
that promise? That they definitely will, because that's what we're saying.
Well, this is in my opinion, kind of piggybacking on what Mike said about how we
We don't want to limit, but can we promise? I feel like that's a promise we can't keep.
Well, then what about if we promote housing policies?
Or encourage.
Yeah, or encourage.
You're
yeah.
increasing opportunity. I think that's the key word here.
Yeah.
So you're not saying that you're going to increase home ownership. You're saying that you will increase the opportunities for home ownership.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's a key difference.
Yeah. We're ensuring opportunities. We're not ensuring
Read it one
Right.
more time.
guaranteeing that it's going
Right.
to happen, but we want to pave the way for it to happen as easily as possible. We want more housing. We want people to be able to afford a home, to buy a home, which is the middle, the middle housing, the missing middle that we're trying to fill with increased density in the city.
Okay, we feel like the verbiage is okay on that?
I think, are we in agreement it should be ensuring opportunities instead of ensuring the home housing policies?
Well, I think the way the sentence is written, it implies that we're
Oh,
ensuring.
it just says opportunities.
It says ensuring opportunities,
Okay.
yeah.
I mean, we could change it around a bit
Oh,
where
yeah.
it says ensure opportunities
Increase.
With our,
or increase homeownership and rental availability for all household sizes, types, and incomes.
Okay, yeah, I think that's where I'm stuck. I think I'm reading it as increase home ownership and rental opportunities.
But it's
Instead of-
not home ownership opportunities, just rental
Right.
Yeah,
opportunities.
yeah.
I would say increase opportunity for homeownership
I
and
agree.
rental availability
Yeah.
for all household sizes, types, and incomes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
like through policies and regulations.
But
I
it
could-
still reads with
Everything Commissioner Stack said then, through policies and regulations at the end.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's good.
that's good. I like it.
Okay, that works.
Can someone say that to me again?
Yeah, so, okay, ensure opportunities for home ownership and rental, I think availability, for all, sorry, yeah, available. For all household sizes, types, and incomes through housing policies and regulations.
Okay.
It's like all the same words, just reordered.
Okay. Ensure opportunities for home ownership.
I like it.
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Okay, anything else in section, in goal 4 in the policies?
Should we move on
Was there something missing?
to diverse economy?
Okay, I think we're clear to move on to diverse economy, goal 1.
Just a quick question, just go back to that we're missing the civic amenities section.
Oh, right.
Oh,
Yeah, you're right that there isn't a policy that speaks directly to civic amenities. They're sort of implied in a few places under goal 3. Sorry, I'm scrolling through the wrong one. I think they're implied in certain areas here, and probably also in goals 1 and 2, maybe less so. But I see that mostly coming in here, where we're talking about access to community services.
I actually think that civic amenities are important enough that it should have a specific section related to it. That's my opinion.
Maybe we should send that concern on with the document. Because I wouldn't know what to write as far as a civic amenity. But if we say
Yeah.
that should be in there and it should have its own place, then maybe the advisory team can work on it? Or I'm not sure who would draft it at this point.
That would be us.
Okay,
Let me just add a note here.
all right.
Add.
Can I talk about a couple of specific things
couple
related
ideas?
to this? So the space right out in front of the building here, this big grassy area and the public area
Yes,
is a civic amenity.
with the arch made out of the old bricks.
Yeah, that whole space where kids could play on the grass and,
Yeah.
you know, and then I think we actually have a shortage of civic amenities perhaps in the city. Actually, let me take that back. I don't know that we do. But I think having civic amenities in the city and specifically having a perspective and an opinion about how they are enhanced and made better and increased over the next 20 years. You know, I could think of a bunch of ways, you know, downtown Oregon City, between the river and the elevator, you know, civic amenities in that world. I could think of some, you know, the corner of Main and 99 right there, which could be a really nice civic amenity space, but it's not because there's huge diesel trucks driving through there every day and you can't even hear yourself talk when you're standing on the corner. That's an example of the anti-civic amenity.
How about the proposed Riverwalk? Would you consider the Riverwalk a?
Of course, yeah.
amenity?
The Riverwalk is huge civic amenity, yeah. And the whole, you know, the whole
Yeah, it's-
Riverwalk thing along the Blue Heron property and, yeah.
Yeah, it does seem like it should have a place in here.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Okay, Commissioner Staggs, you see what she's written. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that line? Any specific amenities?
Well, if I might suggest, since a lot of this has come from the public feedback, I think what we might want to do as a team is take your suggestion and go kind of look through what we've heard from the public and see
Okay.
what other policies may fit in that.
That's a great idea. Okay, all right. Okay, are we moving on? Okay. Diverse economy, goal 1. All right.
I'm going to step away for just a moment. I'll be right back. Please continue.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So and I apologize if I missed something in previous meeting where I wasn't here, but is OTAC our consultant for this? For generating language and kind of taking the public comments and putting it into the languages that we have?
Yes, we have a consultant team of BJ is, I think the main consultant, and OTAC is a sub-consultant who's helping with the language and capturing public comment.
And they're putting it in the language that we see here in front of
Yeah.
us? Right, okay,
Right.
that's what I thought.
Correct.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner LaSalle.
On goal 1, item G, why is childcare even in there? I realize it's an important issue, but there are other important issues also. So if you list just one occupation, why shouldn't there be others?
I actually can answer that. It's one thing that our economic development team is working closely on because they've been hearing from, here, I'll walk in.
Could you
I'll talk in.
lower your mask, please?
Oh, no, thank you, I'll talk in. Our economic development team has been working on this issue and hearing from businesses that affordable childcare in Oregon City is one of the things that is really constraining their ability to expand. And our economic development department has taken that on as one of their goals. And so I know it's come out of that conversation as it ties to economic development as our community, and also knowing that if our businesses are noticing that, our residents definitely are too.
Kind of a practical issue where this came up just the other day is in some of our like campus industrial zones, one of the things that I've seen in other cities that can be beneficial to those employees is if they have an on-site childcare, and maybe it's not supplied by the employer, but there's a potential to have childcare nearby, this kind of campus industrial. Before Sarah gets back, I know in Wilsonville, for example, there's a daycare facility at Mentor Graphics. It's open to the whole community, and they have like years-long waiting list to get in there. But it's that, I think that's the kind of thing that helps just support a workforce in general, is having that nearby.
So the point of letter G is affordable childcare opportunity. Right?
Correct.
This is probably off topic, but what do we know about the childcare at the community college? Is that paid for by student loans? Is that free to students? What do we, it has nothing to do with this, but I'm just curious, does anyone know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I do not.
That's
a good question.
The childcare on campus, which, it makes it possible for some students to go to school. And without the childcare for a lot of people, it's impossible to go to work. Because I think if you have 2 kids, that's pretty much your paycheck.
Yeah.
If you're in a starting position, so it's a big problem.
If we want to offer a wordsmithing for letter G, we need to wait for Sarah to come back?
Yeah.
I'm here.
Okay.
Oh, Sarah's back.
I was going to suggest for G to reword it, say, support affordable childcare opportunities which promote a healthy and balanced workforce.
Flip it around.
Because when you read it now, it sounds like the focus is on a healthy and balanced workforce, including health, childcare.
I think that's what the intention was.
The way it reads to me is that the workforce is the affordable childcare, not the affordable childcare supports the workforce. The way that it was written. It says support a healthy and balanced workforce that includes affordable childcare opportunities. The childcare workers are the focus of that sentence, not the availability of the childcare for other workers.
How about that requires?
I wouldn't use that word in a policy.
Then let's not.
Yeah.
But I see Commissioner Stoll's concern. I just don't have a fix for it.
Do you all agree with the way Sarah has rewritten it?
Oh,
I like it better.
Support affordable childcare opportunities to contribute to a healthy and balanced workforce. Does that?
Would be which contribute to.
I like that better, but I think it might be narrowing the focus of what was intended for G. It was, I can't off the top of my head think of other programs that would support a healthy and balanced workforce, but I think that's what it was. It was about supporting a healthy and balanced workforce. And one of the things is affordable childcare.
Right.
But maybe it might include, again, transportation, shuttle bus.
Well, but I think there was a desire to have a policy specific to affordable childcare
Oh, okay.
opportunities. and as it relates to the workforce. But yeah, there was a desire to have to be very specific about childcare, what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Mike, I actually agree with you. I think supporting a healthy and balanced workforce, I think, is a really good thing for us to support and promote. I guess the question is, should we come up with some other things tonight to add to this, other than the childcare, affordable childcare? Are there other things that we could put in here to promote this, or maybe
For a balanced workforce? Well, there's a lot that goes to it. There's transportation to and from work. I mean, we could add all kinds of things to it. But I think the focus on this one was the childcare. Yeah. I don't know if I'd add too much else to it.
Could it say something like support a healthy and balanced workforce by recognizing the need for affordable childcare opportunities? Does that?
Yeah.
Well, recognizing the need and supporting are two different things, though. So you could recognize the need and not support it.
And not do anything about
So
it.
I think support should be in there.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way how we have it now is good. I'm just questioning whether we should come up with some other things to add to this in order to achieve a healthy and balanced workforce. What are the other things that we can do besides have affordable childcare? And I don't know what the answer is tonight, but.
What about,
Yeah.
because one thing that we try to stay away from is listing all the options, right? Because that's implementation, that comes later. But what if we had some language what if it was like support a healthy and balanced workforce through a variety of programs and policies, including affordable childcare opportunities or something. So we kind of opened it up, but then also call out childcare specifically because that was so important to the people that developed the language.
I like that too.
I think that works.
Yeah.
Does something like that seem like it would work?
That sounds good.
Okay. I'm not going to try to draft that language right now, but I will make a note.
Okay, while she's typing that, did anybody have anything else on any of the other policies?
I've got one on D.
Okay, Commissioner Stoll?
I'd like to strike firm size from that list. There are certain city contracts that require firms of a certain size to fulfill.
Which line is that?
D at the end.
Fair and equitable.
That seems like an unnecessary qualifier because they're just factually, there are contracts the city puts out for that a two-person shop can't do. They don't have the equipment, they don't have the manpower, they require a firm of a certain size.
Regardless of firm size. Well, yeah, at some point it's going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, one-man team can't do a large project. Okay.
Can you tell me where we're at, Commissioner?
D.
D on 2 or?
On one, goal
On
one.
Goal one.
Goal
We're still on
one,
goal
policy
Okay,
D.
sorry, I'm going
Goal
down.
1D.
What if we just said business size?
Well,
Or
again,
are you saying it's,
Yeah, why
we
is it
don't
even
want
in
to?
there?
yeah, but there's, if the city's gonna contract
Okay.
for the mall of streetscape, that required a firm of a certain size,
reread
right? An
this.
excavation company with 2 excavators and 3 employees couldn't have done that. It needed to be a much larger firm. That just seems like a qualifier that doesn't fit within the reality of city
Okay, so
contracts.
the two words that are having a problem are regardless and then, 3 words. Regardless and firm size. So we can't be equitable for every firm size. There are some that just won't fit. So we can't say regardless of firm size because that means that firm size cannot exclude you.
And
Are
that's
those
why I
words
think it
that are
should be
fighting
struck.
each other?
Yeah, that's why I think that's a,
I think firm size is in there to address small and emerging businesses and to make sure that they are given opportunities. I see the issue that you're having. I don't read this as sort of.
Okay, now the other thing,
Go
If
ahead.
you have a two-person firm, they could apply and maybe they wouldn't get the job because it wouldn't, so should we say, no, you cannot bid on the job? So maybe that's what they're trying to say. Maybe we shouldn't exclude anyone.
Well, anyone can bid on the job.
Everybody can bid on the
yeah,
job.
an RFP goes out, anybody who wants to can bid on it, whether they can do it or not, or whether the city thinks they're the best.
Yeah, this is kind of above my comprehension level. I don't know the right answer here.
Well, I think it's saying that fair and equitable opportunities to compete for the contract. It doesn't say they're going to get granted the contract, but we wouldn't have any barriers that would prevent a small firm from applying for something that they were capable of doing.
Yeah, no, I agree. We shouldn't be saying, okay, you have to have at least 30 employees before you can bid on a city job. That wouldn't be fair.
Right, but factually, there are city jobs that require 30 employees or 10 or 50, whatever, however many there are.
And they'll probably pick those firms.
Right.
Yeah.
But
But everybody can apply.
yeah,
I have no problem with that.
currently, contracts with any government agency in Oregon is already doing what we're saying here. So why don't we just say, wouldn't it be better to say, we want to increase the fair and equitable opportunities rather than create, because we're already doing it now.
Yeah, so by saying create, we're saying right now we're not fair and equitable.
Right.
We're going to create
Good
opportunities.
point.
I like increase.
I
Yeah,
like increase too.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would say,
City
just
Commission
say,
should shoot it down
just say
anyway.
increase fair and equitable opportunities for city contracts, period. And just get rid of the whole regardless of business owner, ethnicity, blah, 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 because that's already
Maybe it just muddles it.
something we're doing now based on Oregon law. You have to do that. Any opinions on that?
Well, it's specifying that we're being inclusive, which is so much what a lot of this document is showing. So I don't know that it's bad that it's there. It might be redundant, but I think that's why it got included.
I couldn't quite hear that. What'd you say? Can you say that?
I think that it shows that we're being more inclusive by specifying that, and so much about this document is being inclusive to everybody. So that's the only reason.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Okay, should we expand on that? And are we limited to those 4 or 5 things? Should we say, as an example, business owner, ethnicity, gender disability, or firm size? But we're not limiting to those, right?
No,
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
What
Should we
if,
add
what
one
if
or
we
two
just
more
say, increase fair and equitable opportunities to compete for city contracts for all businesses? And leave out the list.
Sounds good.
words?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I personally, I don't like the word increase, because that makes it sound like we're not doing it.
It sounds like we're doing it to a degree, but not.
How about provide?
I would prefer
Improve.
the word
Ensure.
provide myself.
Provide was already up there.
Provide or ensure.
Provide fair and equitable opportunities.
Or improve. Improve was good.
Improve doesn't mean we stink at it. We're just trying to do better.
Right.
I will point out that it used to be provide and it was redlined to create. Provide was the original language, and then that got changed to create based on some comments. So we can change it again, but provide's already been one of the options.
The word improve, it might, I don't know. Whatever you
I think
think.
improve and increase are very similar. Either one would work. Enhance, I mean, they all have sort of the same intent.
Enhance is good.
Yeah, that's good too.
Yeah. Which word do we like the most?
Well, let me chime in here, because
Okay.
I don't agree that increase implies we're not doing it. I think it just says, I think it actually says we're doing it, but we want to make it better. We want to do it better.
Yeah.
So I still think
I agree.
increase. Would you?
I think
What's the
increase,
word?
enhance, and
The same
improve
thing.
all have the same effect in my mind. So it's just sort of a matter of which one you like the best.
Okay. All right. Maybe we should leave it alone before we make it worse. Okay.
So should I leave it enhance or should I change it back to increase?
What do we think? Enhance? Increase? Improve?
I'm fine with enhance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else?
All right, I'll move on to goal 2. All about housing.
I've got one on this one.
Which one are we on?
Goal 2 and yeah. Goal 2.
I don't like E. I don't like its existence in this document because it prioritizes one type of housing over another. And that's not something that I think we should be doing. It says in the title of that goal, provide housing options, including both rental and home ownership opportunities, but then E basically specifically lists out rental opportunities to prioritize.
Okay. Is there some kind of a state goal that is creating this need for us to prioritize and support, or why are we doing that?
Well, I mean, there is a statewide goal related to housing. It doesn't get to this level of detail. I think that E is a result of conversations with the PAT and community members.
Yeah, I would say strike prioritize and just leave it support development of subsidized affordable housing.
Or is it just affordable housing and leave out subsidized?
Yeah, either way. I mean, affordable housing is always subsidized one way or the other. So, I mean, for the most part.
But the way I was reading it, it feels like the city is supposed to subsidize it, and so it would be a budgetary thing for me. But
Yeah,
I like
agree.
the affordable.
The city doesn't subsidize. I think the county has the ability. Commissioner Mitchell, am I right?
I'm not sure on that.
Or if the state?
I know we don't have the money to be subsidizing affordable housing.
No, yeah.
Well,
I think subsidizing rent would be good.
to a very large degree.
It's not it's not supporting subsidized housing. It's supporting development of subsidized housing.
Okay,
Or support development of.
right.
But
Yes,
I would just strike the prioritize and part because I don't think we should be prioritizing
I agree with that.
homeownership, rental, or private, any of those above
Good
the other.
point.
Does
So
that,
just support. There we
does
go.
that do it? Just
Yep.
support?
Yep.
Can I just add a comment?
Sure.
The subsidized housing is different than affordable housing. So should we say
Well, it can be both. You can
support
subsidize.
development of subsidized and affordable housing?
And affordable?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And we're supporting it, so we're not providing it. So, okay, yeah, right. All right, good, all right. Okay,
I'd like a definition here of item D. What is transit-oriented development opportunity?
I can answer that if
yes,
Christina probably has a really good definition of that.
I'll leave it to Bella.
I mean, it's basically just development that's near transportation.
like on a bus line.
So rather than building an
Like real-
apartment building in the, 2 miles away from the bus stop, you build an apartment development that's right on a street that has a bus. So it's a development that's transit, it's easily accessible to public transportation. Is that?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, it has to do with proximity and also density. So you're building at densities that are supportive of transit. And it's also about mix of uses. So it's residential, it's commercial, it's office, all within a short distance of a transit served area, whether it's light rail or bus stop or.
Commissioner LaSalle, are you familiar at all with Orenco Station in Hillsborough?
Yes.
That's a transit-oriented development with,
Oh, okay.
yeah, mixed use, higher density, and a light rail bubble.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are we on to goal 3?
Anybody else have something on goal 2? Nope, moving on to goal 3.
All right.
I have a question on item B as in Bravo. It says complete walkable neighborhoods. Is that even attainable in Oregon City?
That's a good
Either
question.
now or in the future?
Yeah. The topography is certainly limiting in that.
Well, I think you can promote it, realizing that you're never going to get the perfect, but it's still something that we want to promote. Maybe complete shouldn't be in there, maybe just promote development of walkable. And I was wondering if it should say walkable and rideable.
Well, and I think the complete, that word is in there so that it's intended to speak to land uses. So complete neighborhoods would have not only housing, but some employment uses, some commercial uses, some retail, some office. So it's again, it's kind of getting at that sort of
Right. Good. Yeah.
more
good
mix
point.
of uses. Yeah.
Can we increase the volume at all? That's it.
If I try to increase it any more on my end, we'll get
Sure.
really bad feedback. So I don't know if maybe if the consultant can turn
Well, you know,
up
the
the
reason
volume
I
on her
stated
end a
that is
little
because
bit.
I kind of resist unobtainable objectives to even put them in writing if they're not obtainable, either now or in the future.
But promoting development of it is attainable. We want to work toward that. It doesn't mean
Yeah, we're not ensuring
It
it.
doesn't mean we're going to get that so that every neighborhood in Oregon City is walkable, but we're going to promote development of walkable neighborhoods.
Yeah, in any way we can by,
Well, for instance, Bob, like the, that urbanization plan in Park Place, the poorly named urbanization
Concept plan. Park Place concept.
I'm talking about the one, the fill-in of the sidewalks
the latest,
and bike lanes.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's something that would promote development of a walkable neighborhood. That's the kind of policies we put in place.
Well, whatever the majority wants, I don't see it obtainable in Oregon City either now or in the future.
well, it's not going to be attainable everywhere, but we can promote it where it fits.
Commissioner LaSalle, do you have issue with the word complete? Is that part of what's wrong with it? Is I think what this is really trying to get at is promoting walkable neighborhoods by enhancing this access to community services and amenities. And that word complete can have a different connotation in the planning world, where complete means that there's services that you can get. It doesn't necessarily mean that like all of the sidewalks are poured kind of thing. So I think
you could take that word out. I agree, and not really change the intent of this policy if that word is hanging people up a little bit.
Yeah, that word's confusing.
Yeah, I would support deleting the word complete.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that works. Thank you.
Okay, anything else in goal 3? Okay, we can move on to goal 4. And go ahead when you're ready. I'm going to skim through it one more time.
I've got one on D. There's an idiom that says you can have something cheap, quick, or high quality, but you can only pick two. It encourages all three, which really doesn't jive with, if you want a high quality house, it's not going to be affordable. If you want it to be durable, it's probably not going to be that affordable or more durable.
Is that in the first line or in the policies?
In D.
D.
But
Well, it
the way
says balance.
yeah, it says balance is that is trying to balance all those things.
But what does that mean?
You do your best.
Well, they're going to do their best anyway. I mean,
I think every builder tries to do decent quality and at the most reasonable price, besides, custom homes where people don't care.
right.
But, everybody does their best to balance that. High quality, that's a tough one. I usually see the cheapest windows in spec homes and the cheapest doors.
This isn't just about private development either. It's also
But
about,
it's supporting and promoting. We're not, saying it's going to happen either. We're just going to say we're not going to put any barriers in that would prevent that from happening. So unless you have a edit, that you think sounds better.
I don't know that I do.
No,
It
I
also
understand
isn't
your
necessarily
concern.
saying that those very things have to be achieved in the same building. So it's not necessarily saying that the high quality, durable, and affordability all have to occur within the same building. You could also think of the balance as being more of a broad balance, like a citywide balance.
Okay.
What I'm not seeing in here, I'm not seeing anything about permits and fees and system development charges being part of the equation. So we're not offering to do our part to make these affordable?
I think we get into that in the infrastructure
Okay, all right.
goals, and we're almost there.
All right, because that's a big chunk it's turning into in development.
Yeah.
I've got a comment on this section we're in still right now.
Still in goal 4?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we say something in here about, we're saying encourage and support new development that incorporates sustainability and livability. Can we say something about preservation of energy preservation? Sustainability is...
Well, we're in diverse economy. Would that fit better in protected environment?
Perhaps.
Okay, that was...
Is there a section in there about that?
I don't know, but maybe that's where it would fit better.
Cover resource things.
You don't feel like the term sustainability sort of captures energy conservation?
Yeah, I think B gets it. I think letter B has it.
The
Is
resource
wording good,
efficiency.
or would you like to change or improve something there?
No, I think that's good.
Okay.
Moving on.
Anything else? I guess not. We're moving to transportation. Okay,
Infrastructure,
connected
yeah.
infrastructure, goal 1.
Can I say something?
Sure.
This is sort of it might be a little bit funny, but I think it would be incredible and wonderful if there was a direct TriMet access of some kind between Oregon City and downtown Portland. And I don't know exactly what that means, but I think having that kind of connection to Portland would be wonderful and amazing. And I don't know whether it's in this anywhere, but I'll just throw that out there.
I don't ride the bus, so I don't know if there's a bus line. I'd
Oh, there is a
imagine it would
bus
go
line.
Does it go up 99? Up to Laughlin,
Isn't number 33?
run up 99
Yeah.
to Portland.
But why doesn't the TriMet come into Oregon City? And I know there's a long history. I know there's a lot of things.
But we
The
have a bus
TriMet does come
station
into Oregon
on
City. That's who provides the transit. Are you talking about a max line?
Light rail or bus?
Oh, light rail.
Light rail, or what about
I think they only made it to Milwaukee.
a
so far.
river, some kind of river transportation to get you to downtown Portland, which I know has been talked about in the past. Anyways, I'm throwing it out there. I don't know whether it occurs in this document anywhere, but having that kind of connection to central Portland, I think could be an aspirational goal for the next 20 years that we could maybe consider, or at least have some implication in our 2040.
Well, if you're talking about light rail, that's expansion of any rail opportunities in Clackamas County are prohibited by law.
Yeah, he's good. Covers
The
the
voters voted that a few years ago.
He is regional.
So
Well,
Yeah.
we can change laws.
We can
we
support it.
could, yeah. Just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah.
Does it seem like we need some policy language specific to connections to Portland? Or is it sort of wrapped in some of this more broad language that's already here?
I'm going to say the unpopular thing here. I work in Portland, and I don't want Oregon City any more connected to Portland than it has to be. Because I don't want Oregon City any more connected to
Portland?
Portland than it has to be, because Portland is not a good place. I spend a lot of time there. It's gone downhill. I don't want to be connected to it.
Bravo, and thank you for that.
Well, I think we should aspirationally want it to become, or get back to its being a good place.
We could,
That's how I
and when
feel.
that happens, we can explore a connection, but for now, let's not.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, but
Another place you could put that eventually, maybe not in this document, but to me, that kind of aspirational goal fits really well in a transportation system plan. So when that update comes around and we will identify goals for a transportation system plan, that kind of thing fits really well in that type of document.
I didn't mean to derail the conversation here, but I just thought I wanted to mention that, because I personally believe that the broader kind of regional network of transportation is an important thing for us to keep in mind.
Okay, I've got a question. I'm sorry to have to ask it. B, reduce Oregon City's carbon footprint by supporting and emphasizing active transportation modes. What does that mean?
Walking and biking.
Walking, biking is considered active. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So would non-motorized be a more,
You could say non-motorized, because it could also be skateboarding or scooting or rolling somehow.
Okay.
Can we say
Non-motorized?
non-internal combustion engine,
Well, but then that still includes electric bikes, which,
non-gas powered?
yeah.
non-fossil fueled?
But I don't know if an electric bike really pumps out, hydrocarbons, so.
Does that wording non-motorized work?
Well, non-motorized modes of transportation.
But that don't take,
Yeah.
but
You
we're
have
trying
to say
to,
internal combustion, no internal combustion.
but we're saying no cars, right? Active means no cars? It would be bicycles, skates, skateboard.
Yeah, it basically means modes of transportation where you have to move yourself.
Okay.
Although I do think
Okay.
an e-bike would probably count because you are still being active. It's just helping you.
Okay, but it stops at e-bike. We don't go into e-motorcycle or e-scooter. It stops
About
at
a
e-bike.
car. I mean, really, plug-in electric vehicles.
What about a one-seat car, which is technically, it's, I'm not trying to overcomplicate it. I'm just trying to understand what we're saying. All right. So that's more for personal transportation. All right. Okay.
I have a question on item F.
Yes, Commissioner LaSalle.
I don't know why we even have it in there.
Public park.
That subject has been studied half to death, I don't know how many times. And the only improvement that could be imagined in downtown Oregon City for parking would be a multi-story parking structure. So why would we explore or try to improve parking programs in downtown Oregon City that have been proved over and over again? It can't be improved any more than it already is.
Well, I disagree. It can be improved still.
I don't know how.
More after-hours parking lots like the two that we have now, night and weekend parking lots. That's one idea. There's talk of would a shuttle to a remote location for employees make sense? There are still a lot of things that we could do to improve the situation downtown. Short of a parking garage.
I must admit that my mind can be changed, and you just did it.
Well, thank you.
I want to add a quick thought. This is maybe out of context a little bit, but what if we closed Main Street?
Pedestrian, make it like a Fußgänger zone and
Pedestrian only.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there.
I think I've mentioned that before, and I think I met some resistance. But yeah, I've thought about that during certain hours of the day. No cars can go in, and the whole thing is like a pedestrian plaza.
There's a lot of case studies all
where
over.
you put the cars. So
There's a lot of case studies that show that is a huge improvement. So,
well, we've had something. Was it the first city celebration where the whole, so we've done it at certain times, but it's not every day. It's not like every Saturday, between 10 and 3. It's specific events, which is, and they're really nice. Maybe we should, I don't know where that would fit, but maybe encourage more of those. But I don't know if that even fits in this. Okay. Because we're not limiting those types of uses. Okay. Right. Okay. Anything else in goal 1?
Yeah, up at the top, in answer to the question, is equitability the right word? I don't see how equitability adds anything to that sentence. I think it can be
I think
stricken.
they just put it in there because they're trying to use the word equitable.
Right,
a lot.
yeah, it's a buzzword. So I think we can
what's the right word?
No, there isn't one. That doesn't need to be there. Provide a safe, comfortable, and accessible transportation network that serves all modes of travel, including non-motorized modes.
Okay, what do we think?
I like it.
We all like it?
I like it.
Okay, that's 4?
That was my original comments, but after,
Okay, so that's our input. That word shouldn't be there. Okay,
can I just throw out one more thought?
sure.
The other thing that I don't know if it's talked about in here at all, but is roundabouts.
Okay. There's mixed reviews on roundabouts?
There's a lot of really good examples of roundabouts in other parts of the Portland metro area that work really well. And it has, it's less expensive to build and promotes a more fluid kind of urban, they're known to be have very positive impacts on the community. So I don't know whether that's mentioned anywhere in this document, but roundabouts, I think, are a good idea.
The only place I know we saw some issues with was when we were looking at the Beaver Creek concept plan to turn into the Thimble Creek concept plan. The cost, when it comes to, how much land you have to buy, it was almost double. It was insane how much that added to it. So it doesn't seem like it adds a lot of land, but when you think about how much land you really have to buy, it does increase it. And that was pretty much the biggest hurdle that we found, because every study that ODOT does says they are safer. you can't really run a roundabout. You can't T-bone someone in a roundabout at 45 miles an hour. The cost is prohibitive, is one of
The
the
land
biggest
cost.
hurdles. But they definitely put them where they can. Yeah, so.
I agree with you, but I think that belongs in the transportation system plan.
Yeah.
More than in here.
I agree
Yeah,
with
that's-
that.
that's
It
probably
already is
a
in the
finer level of
transportation system
detail
plan. Yes,
that we would.
several roundabouts in the TSP.
Yeah, we're not preventing them from being built. There's no hurdles in here that they can't fit through. So they fit in here, so we're not preventing them. So we're promoting them. Okay, anything else? Okay, are we ready to move to goal 2?
Just real quickly to
Yes.
take a side note before we move into goal 2.
Okay,
Just given the time that we're at, Mr. James Grams has requested that the economic development update be moved to a different commission date. And so he can come back on March 14th and give you an update then.
I think that's a good idea.
That sounds good. This is taking longer than we thought.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Back to goal 2.
okay, goal 2.
Looks good to me.
Looks good to me.
I got rid of the underserved.
Yeah, historically, I remember.
Yeah,
Are we moving on already?
1 quick minute. F, why is F in there? Of all the things that we're going to create a partnership with, why internet?
That
I think
came
that
up
was your idea.
again and
Is
again
it-
during
was it my
conversations with the PAT.
I'm pretty sure it was your idea.
Are
Or
you-
maybe it was Mike's. It was something to the effect of the COVID was, caused people to have remote work and we needed to have something for high-speed internet so people could do remote work.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay. Well, I like your idea, so I'm not gonna have a problem with it. Okay. So we're good on goal 2? Okay. Goal 3,
Hold on 1 second, sorry.
yeah.
Can we go back? So letter B talks about system development charges. You mentioned something earlier about that, right? What was your comment earlier about that?
Well, for example, the cost of the system development charges on an ADU are pretty much the same as new construction. So if you add the system development charges to the building permits, you end up with about 50 grand, which is a real hurdle to affordable housing.
Right.
So we are kind of preventing affordable housing with some of those charges, or we're putting a big roadblock up. Because if somebody is mechanically and inclined with a hammer and a nail gun, he could potentially build an ADU for maybe $50,000. But if you tack another $50,000 onto that and fees and things, $50,000 and $100,000 is a much different, it's like,
I agree.
it's a lot. So I feel like, and I hear that Portland is much cheaper. And I don't think their infrastructure is much better. So they're doing something to make it work better than we are. And I'd love to know more about that.
Well, and I think that that's what this policy was intended to capture was needing to explore having SDCs that are like variable SDCs based on house size. So it's talking about adjusting SDCs to ensure the benefit of new development, but also making sure that impacts are proportionately shared. And I think it's that proportionately piece that gets at the house size.
Why can't we say reduce system development charges?
Well, you could, but I think adjust is a broader word to capture all of the possibilities. There may be instances where SDCs go up, and there may be some where they go down. I think this was intended to be a general policy about making sure that your SDCs are kind of current.
Maybe we should add something in there that says that I think we should put affordable housing in there somewhere. To improve, how do we word that?
Affordable housing development. Because if you lower system SDC charges for housing development, you're going to get more housing.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about the big mansions. I'm not saying reduce the system development charges for those, but like in a case of building a tiny home, we can improve our inventory of affordable housing by giving them a break. So it definitely needs to be specific to that.
It's going to increase the missing middle. It's going to increase the housing in general.
Yeah.
I think especially the missing middle housing, which is in alignment with HB 2001, which we're trying to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So part of what we will be talking about in the coming months is a housing production strategy. And within that, we would talk about tools like SDCs and how they could be reduced in certain circumstances, or how we would offset them, what that looks like. I would not suggest in the comp plan saying reducing them simply because it has a lot of consequences, some known, some we don't know until we explore it more. So if what you're trying to get at is, adjusting system development charges to allow more development of housing options, maybe that's some wording to put in there. But I don't want to kind of narrow in too much on SDCs, because there's still areas of the city now that need to be serviced, right, and serviced appropriately. So it just takes I think it takes a lot of analysis.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that SDCs do not cover the costs of the infrastructure improvements already. And so further reducing them would not be very practical. I think that they are appealable. So if a developer wanted to attempt lower priced properties or buildings, they could appeal a break on the SDCs if they wish to. So I think the process is already in the system.
Yeah, well, my concerns weren't really towards development. It was more towards one person putting in an ADU, not a person putting in a neighborhood with, complementary ADUs that are going in the backyard. I'm not talking about a big build out. I'm just saying we're trying to add middle housing and affordable housing. And then I think in those cases, yeah, right, maybe it doesn't belong in this document. Yeah.
Well, I wonder if we could add some language, and I made a note here that
We don't have to put any specific policy in there, but, as long as we're not putting any barriers in. But then again, there are no barriers in it the way it's written already.
Yeah, I think with the note that Sarah has captured, we could kind of go back and put together another policy that's more specific to that missing middle piece to that of, something along the lines of housing options and how SDCs impact housing options.
Okay.
Would that kind of get at what you're thinking
Yeah.
about?
And that may actually go in a different goal. If I were going to do that, I would probably add it. Well, hard to say. It may be more appropriate for the diverse economy goal around housing than here. But we'll take another look at that and make a recommendation.
Okay. All right. Anything else in goal 2? Okay. We ready to go to goal 3? Okay, goal 3.
I've got one on B.
B or D?
D, Bravo.
Bravo, okay.
I think fire protection is probably a holdover from the last comp plan, but the city no longer provides fire protection. So that's not something the city does anymore. So it probably doesn't need to be in there.
What's the definition of fire protection?
The fire department, or in our case, the fire district, but it's a district.
Oregon City, we're all Clackamas County now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so do we need to remove fire protection from there?
So maintain a high level
It's a
of police
partnership,
protection.
but it's not, we're not providing it.
Yeah.
We're not maintaining it.
We're not maintaining it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I think that makes sense.
You want to mention fire protection in there as a partnership somehow?
Yeah, or just general public safety, either one. Because public safety would include
okay.
fire department, sheriff's office, OSP.
Yeah, but you're right, we're not maintaining
Right.
fire departments, right? Okay. All right. Coordinate. Okay, I don't have any concerns with anything else. Anybody have a concern? Any of these? Okay. I think Commissioner Mitchell would have told us if he has something in this section, but we can always go back to it when he comes back. So let's go to goal 4. Commissioner Mitchell, we moved to goal 4, but did you have anything about goal 3? Okay, all right.
Is this focused on public facilities only? It seems to be.
I'm sorry, okay, what was the question again?
Is this goal 4 is it focused on public facilities?
Well, letter D, coordinate infrastructure to support the development of climate-friendly and equitable neighborhoods. So,
Yeah.
So it's public, it's neighborhoods too.
It seems to be completely focused on public. Do we want to say anything about promoting energy conservation, sustainability, and resiliency in private development as well?
Well,
You
our
might
piece of that would be our
see some of that
infrastructure.
language in the natural resource, in the environment theme. Let me look real quick.
And I think
So that's going to come later.
I said that.
I think the private side of this was covered under diverse economy in goal 4. And Commissioner Stagg, I think you're correct that this
Yes.
entire policy for connected infrastructure is public focused.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I see nothing. Anybody have anything? Okay. are we moving to protected environment? All right, goal 1.
I've got a comment.
Okay,
Can we somewhere here say that we want to do this in areas that are already designated as natural resource areas? Can we provide trails and places for people to enjoy and walk through the natural resource areas of the city? Is that something that we're already doing, or? Because we have this, amazing collection of natural resources that we could have trails and ways to walk through them and that sort of thing.
I do kind of think that's inherent in the language.
Okay.
We could certainly tweak the language a little bit to call that out more if you think it's important. But I see that as sort of wrapped into the language in the goal itself. Provide and maintain a comprehensive system of parks, trails, and amenities, et cetera, et cetera.
We could add something like, and natural areas to see, provide signage and trails, connection within parks, between parks, neighborhoods, natural areas, and public amenity. Because you're right, we do have some natural areas that aren't parks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the Enrod acreage of the city.
Right.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to enjoy those areas more and engage and participate more with those areas, but they don't have the amenities needed to,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think you can carefully weave in to those areas walkways and paths and trails and that sort of thing. It doesn't have to be left as a thing that you just look at when you drive by. It can be something you actually engage in with, as people in the city. I think mentioning that here somewhere would be good.
What if we mentioned it in the goal language itself? So parks, trails, natural areas, and recreation amenities like that. That way it's sort of captured at the top.
I like that.
Yeah, that's good.
I like it too.
Could we add the word resource, natural resource areas?
Mm-hmm. Although we do get some language down in goal 2. So when we get there, let's just make sure we're not being redundant.
okay. Is everybody done with goal 1? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, goal 2.
Missing.
One question, F, support programs and methods that'll improve air quality in Oregon City. Any program, any method, we're not limiting that to anything. We're open to what are we talking, the way we plant grass, the type of fertilizer we use? It covers everything, right? Okay, all right. Okay, anybody see anything? Anybody see anything in goal 2 that causes concern?
I wanted to suggest that on the header,
Okay.
that we add the word that says conserve, protect, and enhance the function, health. Can we add the word engagement? So we want to engage the natural resources and ecosystems more, which kind of relates to the earlier point about engaging with the natural resources. Do we need to say that here too, or no?
As far as the people engaging?
Yeah.
So, and I love that idea. I just think that when you've got the natural resources, like a C-zone, conservation areas, they don't want people in them. You can't put buffers or even go down and clean up an area. Say if it's near your property, you have to be 25 feet minimum away from them to even do anything around them. So I think they want to encourage people not to engage. And so I just wonder how that works with, NROD and all their rules.
Yeah, I know there are some areas like where you have a wetland. Mm-hmm. You're not going to put a trail through a wetland, right? But you certainly could do a trail around the wetland so that people can walk around it and see it and enjoy it.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's great.
But maybe that's already implied here in the current language.
Oh, maybe.
Well, I think the city does have a trail system already. You just add to that.
Yeah, enhance the existing trail system, right?
Yeah, A kind of covers a lot of that. Implement site development and design practices that incorporate natural ecosystem enhancement, minimize impacts on natural resources, and avoid degradation or loss of wetlands, watershed, and habitat. So we're minimizing impacts, we're avoiding degradation.
When I read,
It doesn't say we're engaging.
yeah, when I read that, it says hands off, like we're not going to do anything there.
Well, and we should, the wetlands should be hands off. Although at Stone Creek, they did put a walkway right through the center of the swamp. So I don't know how good that was, but they did it. And it's quite a nice walkway. But maybe they used low impact pilings when they put that in. I don't know. I'm sure there was a consultant that gave it an okay. Okay, anything else in goal 2? Okay. Goal 3.
Our last one.
Yes. Let me skim through it. Okay. Seems worded pretty good. Anybody have any concerns with it? It's good to me. Goal 3, we're okay? Okay. All right. I guess that covers it. Is there anything we want to revisit, or are we okay with what the changes we've recommended, our hopes and dreams, and are we ready to pass that on?
Is this the last time we're going to see this?
No, so what we'll do next is the same exercise with the city commission, and then we'll
right.
do our work to meld it together and bring it to you at your joint work session in April.
Will the commission be presented with the document that we started with or the document we finished with in this meeting?
I think if we can, we probably want to present them with what you've finished with.
Okay.
That's what I was assuming we would be doing. So they'll see the changes that you've requested or recommended.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Sarah, for your work tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's a lot to get through. But it's a good exercise.
Yeah, well, it's an important document, so we appreciate your time and your efforts in it. Okay, is our work on this agenda item done?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for your work.
Okay, so we're skipping number 2. James Graham went to bed. Okay. Communication number 3, are we going to still do the middle housing code update? Okay, and I believe this is Christina Robinson Gardner.
All right. Thank you, Chair Schlagenhofer. I have a quick, 9-slide presentation just to kind of give you next steps and get you prepared for the work session, which will be on March 14th. So think of me as your 4th grade teacher assigning you homework.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Matt.
I try not to. I will speak really, really loud if I can. Thank you. Okay. So this goal tonight, once again, is to look at a brief overview of HB 2001. If you've forgotten or it's been a while since you've last thought about it, provide you a timeline for the upcoming legislative public hearings and kind of get you oriented so how you can be most prepared as they start. So what is HB 2001? Hold on. So really briefly, HB 2001 was adopted by the state legislature, and it looks at a partial solution for providing more middle housing in Oregon. And so middle housing is that gap between single-family residential and multifamily apartment complexes. Those include duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, townhomes, cluster homes, and that is kind of in the big bucket we call middle housing. Oregon City is targeted because we are a population of more than 10,000 people in the urban growth boundary. And most importantly, kind of what my brain has been on for the last year, the legislature put an adoption deadline date and said, you need to adopt code to comply with House Bill 2001 by June 30th, 2022. And if not, through the OAR process, we wrote model code for you. If you don't have the code adopted by June 30th, 2022, you're required to follow the model code. So that is our kind of deadline we're looking at, and I'll talk you some of the iterations of how we're going to get there. Slide. Oh, and actually, and one more piece I wanted to add on. The other thing we'll be looking at is Senate Bill 458, which is called Middle Housing Land Division. And Senate Bill 458 is a follow-up bill that was adopted after House Bill 2001, and it relates to allowing land divisions of middle housing development. So if you build a duplex or a triplex, today it stays on one lot, and it's quite hard to actually have that owner occupied. You have to go through a conduization process, which is very complicated. And the legislature really was looking at conventional loans and conventional mortgages, which really likes to have deed simple property, so that where you own the land. And so Senate Bill 458 is a requirement that the city must implement, and we're putting it in with this housing package that allows either at the time of middle housing or after middle housing development is built. So let's say your neighbor builds a duplex or a triplex infill development, they could then separate each of those units into a sellable piece of property. And the legislature provides very specific requirements for Senate Bill 458, and it really is just drawing lines on a map. I mean, it's more complicated than that, but in a really sense, it is the middle housing project is adopted, it's submitted to the building division, planning reviews it, it gets built, and then a land division is created that separates those 3 units into, in a sense, attached parcels where the land is connected to the unit, and you could sell that. It's still part of the parent middle housing tax lot, but you can sell the individual unit. So there's code that will be coming up that will help the city implement that. I think the key piece, I think what we were talking about is looking at ways to reduce barriers or to promote home ownership. This is a big one that the legislature really saw, which is how do we promote not only the building of middle housing, so the smaller units infill development, but actually ways that people could buy those units with the property through conventional mortgages. As I said, the two big pieces of HB 2001, large city, and Oregon City is considered a large city, must allow duplexes on every lot and parcel that allows a single-family detached dwelling. The Oregon City, starting in our code, looking at single-family and duplexes is really the same thing. They're allowed anywhere. Excuse me, on any lot that allows single-family. And allowing triplexes, quadplexes, townhomes, and cottage clusters in areas that allow single-family detached dwellings. So some of the minimum lot sizes or dimensions may be slightly different, but each zone has to allow those uses.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of houses in Oregon City, they were put on the lots before zoning. So there'll be a lot in a R6 area, and it's 3,800 square feet, but there's a house on it.
Mm-hmm.
This says allow duplexes on every lot and parcel to allow single-family detached dwellings. But what if they tore that house down? It's no longer a big enough lot to build. Could they replace it with a duplex?
Yeah, that's really what the legislature is saying, is almost combining single-family and duplexes into one definition. So if you can allow a single family either through a non-conforming process, or if you're the lot size, then you should be able to allow a duplex. So wherever you allow single family, you should allow a duplex in every dimensional requirement.
If it's too small for a single family house, it's too small for a duplex.
True, but this is where I don't want to be a specific case that we'd have to talk to attorneys, but most likely you have a pre-existing legally created lot, and therefore you should be able to allow a single family or duplex. In a sense, the city is combining single family and duplexes into one definition of what we allow.
Okay.
Without getting more specific, but that's what the legislature is saying, is you need to start treating single family and duplexes as the same kind of definition.
Okay, so they're just treated the same, they're not treated better. You wouldn't be able to put a duplex where you can't put a single family. Okay, all right, thank you.
Let me do the next slide. So just to remind everybody, here's some examples of middle housing types, cottage clusters, duplexes, quadplexes, and townhomes. And some people are asking, what's the difference between a townhome and a quadplex? It gets a little esoteric now that we also have Senate Bill 458, which allows, land divisions. That was done after after House Bill 2001. I guess if you have a fourplex where each unit is on a floor, you wouldn't be able to do middle housing land division because you couldn't divide, the ground underneath unit. But if you had a fourplex that were next to each other, like a townhome, it would be and you could go through a middle housing land division. So there's some pieces to this as we look at middle housing land division, we look at the requirements of House Bill 2001, we look at our code. And we wrote our code in the land of there's single family and not single family, and things are getting mushier. And we are working through our code to kind of look at the new reality of we're going to be allowing middle housing in single family zones. And now we're going to also be allowing land division of middle housing. And what does that mean for our code? And so those are the things we've been working on this year. So what are you going to be looking at this spring? So this spring, we've kind of put it into 3 categories. And for the sake of being able to explain it, it's the must address. The Planning Commission and the City Commission must address in package number 1. So these are items where House Bill 2001 provides clear direction, and where they provide clear direction with a couple of options. So there'll be some policy questions that you must answer before June 30th. And then there are specific code sections that the bill really directs clear code language for. The next section is kind of more should address, and these could fall into code sections that now are more misaligned because it may not be required by House Bill 2001, but now they're kind of don't quite fit. And a good example would be maybe the medium density residential minimum lot standards now are the exact same as a low density residential. And we worked through our Equitable Housing Project a couple years ago, does the Planning Commission or City Commission want to increase the lot coverage or setbacks or anything in the medium density residential to be, to allow more development that you would in the low density residential? So they don't have to, some of these shoulds. The Planning Commission or City Commission can say, no, we don't really want to change it, it's not required, and so we're not going to. Could say, that makes a lot of sense. Now you have kind of a misaligned zone, let's, make a difference between medium density and low density residential. Or, I don't know, I still have a lot of questions, let's think about it. Like, those are all reasonable answers that could come out of this should address. The could address, kind of the third thing, is items where the city could choose to further remove barriers to middle housing or even promote. Those are kind of general policy questions, and we don't necessarily have red line code language for those, but as we move through the hearings, there are those policy questions, and if this Planning Commission does have kind of clear direction to provide the City Commission, that would be really helpful. If you don't have clear direction or want to spend more time on some of the could address or want to go out back to the public and ask questions, that could be your answer to City Commission on some of these must address, should address, or could address. Go to the next slide. So some examples of policy questions that you will be starting to look at this spring. Things that are kind of in the must or should address column are, do you want to allow detached duplexes? Now, especially now that we will have the ability to do middle housing land division. So instead of having all duplex are always attached, where the walls are attached between unit 1 and unit 2, maybe you allow the second unit to be built in the backyard and you don't attach it necessarily and you keep the remaining house, but both units could potentially be divided and sold separately. So that's an option the City Commission and the Planning Commission could look at. Once again, that lot coverage question about low and medium density zones, House Bill 2001 really kind of pushes them together, and they aren't as further differentiated as they were in our previous code amendments for equitable housing. There's a question about how many townhomes are allowed in the zone, and House Bill 2001 gives some options, and the Planning Commission, City Commission can provide kind of really option A, B, or C in the level of density that's the House Bill 2001 allows. And then a question about cottage clusters and on-street parking credits and middle housing and geohazard areas. So there is ability for the city through Goal 7, natural hazards, to limit middle housing in our geologic hazard overlay district in areas of slopes over 35% or in landslide areas and the buffers around that. And is that something the Planning Commission and City Commission want to pursue? Things that the Planning Commission, City Commission could address either now or in the future, allowing multiple ADUs per lot. Looking at kind of, once again, the little bit of a disconnect now, our higher density dwelling district, R2, really is not that different now for maximum and minimum densities as R2, especially as it relates to middle housing. Additional development standards and lot averaging for subdivisions has been a long-term question. There was kind of clear direction by the Planning Commission, City Commission. Now with HB 2001, is there a different opinion or different policy related to that? So those are some examples of the must, should, and could policy questions that will come to you this spring. Additionally, House Bill 2001 says you can have design and siting standards for middle housing. You know, what the porch looks like, how many windows, you know, what's the roof pitch, things like that, but it can't be more restrictive or more detailed than single family residential. So if there's something that the community wants to regulate in middle housing that we currently do not regulate single family, we cannot do that. But if we chose to regulate it in single family residential, we could regulate it in middle housing. So an example would be, we currently don't have a minimum open space, landscaped open space requirement for single-family residential. We just kind of assume it gets built. So therefore, we can't require that with middle housing. But if we did have something that regulated open space, single family, we could. So those are some of those policy questions we can look at in the future.
Christina, I got a question. And
Sure.
I'm sorry for going here. Okay, so allowed detached duplexes or threeplexes or fourplexes. So it would be basically 3 or 4 separate structures.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a R8, you would have, it's technically a fourplex, but now it's actually 4 separate units. Would it be 4 separate sewer lines or would it be one big party sewer?
That's a great question. Middle Housing Land Division actually requires, if you're going to do it, each unit has to have their own utility connection to city utilities.
So how is this different than just basically doing 4 R2 units in a R8 neighborhood?
Well, this is the question, because you could still do let's say the lot, you have the lot big enough to do a
Because you can
fourplex.
sell them separately. So you can sell a 2,000 square foot lot in an R8 neighborhood.
So you could, if based on House Bill 2001, it gives directions of lot sizes, so it tells us what our minimum lot sizes will be. You could build let's say you have a lot that you could build a fourplex on.
Right.
We, as a city, could say, go ahead and build your fourplex. Could say, you could separate those and have 4 separate structures that could be sold off, or we say, no, we want you to keep it as a fourplex. We could say, you could do that, but you got to fit it in your underlying zone setback. So you have your box that you can build your single family house in, and you figure out whatever configuration you want. That's fine too. These are things that the city could choose to do.
Okay.
One thing that some communities are looking at is detached duplexes. That's kind of the simplest piece. We did a query with cities in the metro region, as say half to 2/3 of cities are looking at that, which is, it is a way to promote the retention of existing single family homes. If you do have a larger area in your backyard, rather than demolishing your house and building a duplex, which could be allowed, it may be a way to, or having a really, long connection, or having some weird,
I think earlier we were talking about internal conversions, taking a big old house and
Right.
turning it into 4 units.
and
But now three or 4 separate units on a lot, it's just sounding like we're splitting a lot into tiny little pieces and creating 4 separate, and that's just how it seems.
Then it's not a fourplex anymore, in my mind. Then it's no longer
They're
a
calling
fourplex,
a
it's just a,
fourplex, but it's got four utility connections, it's
Yeah.
got 4 lots.
so you don't have to do that. It could be one building.
Okay, so we have a say in that.
Those are some of the
all right.
questions.
Okay.
I think most cities are not really looking at 3 or 4plexes. They're really asking this question of, do we want to allow detached duplexes? I think that's like the first question of, and
Okay.
that's something that we'll be asking the Planning Commission, City Commission, because it will
Okay.
play out some of the specific code red lines we'll be pursuing.
It'd be something we could allow if we wanted to really support affordable
Correct,
housing.
it's something you
Okay, all
could allow.
right. Okay, all right, thank you.
I've got just a quick question related to our previous conversation about SDCs. So is the SDC for a fourplex the same as it would be for a 4-unit fourplex that's divided with 4 individual connections?
For that.
A fourplex would be a fourplex based on our
Even though-
system development sheet.
Okay.
We have it ranked by, I think by the time you get to fourplex, each unit is multifamily. We have our duplexes, and I think we have our cluster. We have different categories. I don't have it in front of, but I think the fourplex just gets linked to our multifamily code standard, our multifamily SDCs, which is each unit is a specific amount of money. So it is the least amount of all the housing choices. So single family would be the highest, then duplex. Then you get to, I think cluster homes is also multifamily, and maybe even triplex.
So a fourplex that's split into 4 individual deeds is the same as overall SDC as a fourplex that's not?
Correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so next steps. This is where I'm asking you You have no homework tonight, but I kind of wanted to go over some of those policy questions, to start getting your brain thinking as we get to the work session on the 14th. So the next steps for you, we have March 14th Planning Commission work session where I'm really asking, make sure you're ready to ask staff questions. This is really the great meeting to kind of load me with every question you could ever think about this package so I can have time to respond back and kind of provide options. On March 28th, it's the first Planning Commission hearing, and be ready to give staff direction. If you know at that hearing clear direction, give it to me, because I think our goal is to figure out where do we have clear direction, put those items aside, and where do we not have clear direction, and what does a Planning Commission need to get clear direction. And then our goal is April 11th, the recommendation to the City Commission. And once again, we have that must address, could, should address, and so the only thing that has to be sent to the City Commission is the must address items. Everything else really is of the rest of the items. If you have clear direction, we will forward that on to the City Commission. If you have items that you think are really interesting, but you don't think as a Planning Commission you're ready for that, or you think that more public outreach needs to happen, let the City Commission know that too. And we really are looking at potentially a package 1 and a package 2 of these code amendments. So the City Commission will hold their hearings in April and May, adopt the package with a deadline by June 30th, and then really see what's left here from the Planning Commission, the City Commission, and what really is our work plan to address the second package, which will be in a second section of the legislative ordinance. And that'll happen later in 2022. So really my goal, and hopefully the Planning Commission's goal, is within these next 3 hearings, the work session the 14th, and then the 2 hearings, the 28th and the 11th, is what do you need, questions do you have for staff that I can get back to you to allow you to provide clear direction to the City Commission, and then identify where you don't have clear direction. And then one more slide. This is really, I think, aligning to some of these conversations related to system development fees. Next week's City Commission work session is a presentation by Becky Hewitt with Econ Northwest that is looking at potential housing production strategy tools to increase the affordability of middle housing. So these are non-land use tools. What you're working on today and through this code amendment are the land use tools, reducing the barriers based on the direction of House Bill 2001. But there are other tools, and the city will be working on a housing production strategy, which is what is the community's strategy to help produce the housing that we need. That's required in 2027. So we have a little gap here in between. And one of the requirements of House Bill 2001 is cities need to consider, which is a very broad answer, but need to consider measures to increase affordable housing. And there's 3 things that House Bill 2001 is requiring cities to even look at, not to do anything about or adopt, but just to generally look at as an option. Waiving or deferring system development fees, property tax exemptions, and assessing a construction excise tax. And one option in the waiving and deferring system development fees could be categorizing them with, there are ways to look at system development fees that we don't do in the city right now. Could be location, are you in a denser urban area of the city? And that might affect your transportation STCs. How many fixtures do you have in your house? Are you a single family house with 5 or 6 bathrooms? That might be a very different SDC for water and sewer than if you are a 1.5 bath, very small single family house. So scaling system development fees based on the size of the dwelling unit and the impact of the dwelling unit, those are some things that the City Commission in the future could look at. So what Becky Hewitt is presenting on Tuesday are those tools, not that the City Commission needs to take that on as a work plan item this year, but it is a requirement of House Bill 2001 that the city consider or learn about those 3 items. And that is what I have.
And what time is that work session?
That is on Tuesday, March 8th, the next
At what time?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock?
I don't know where on the agenda it is, but it should be in the 6 o'clock
Okay.
hour or early 7 o'clock hour.
Thank you.
But that's a city commission, not a joint.
Correct, yeah.
Not a joint session. Okay. Quick question. Does House Bill 2001 address condominiums?
No. The condominiums can still happen. If you wanted to do a fourplex, you could still turn it into a condominium. But House Bill 2001 really was looking at how do we allow, House Bill 2001 was looking at how do cities allow middle housing through the same general process as single family. So you should be able to go to the building department, apply for a building permit to build a middle housing just like you do single housing. That's really was the goal for South SB 2001. So these are not type 2 applications. These are type 1 over-the-counter building permit reviews. And so condominium is really an after-the-fact application you submit to the state that talks about the ownership model of that tax lot. And that's not necessarily a land use requirement or something that land use regulates.
But if I have a piece of property that I want to build a fourplex on, would I be allowed to do it stacked and have it be condominiums?
Yeah, you actually don't really work through the city. That's really something you submit to the state of Oregon, condominium.
Okay.
Are you asking about currently or at
I'm
through this
asking
bill?
about does HB 2001 change the way we deal with condominium?
Okay. I believe the
No,
answer.
it doesn't really address it. HB 2001 doesn't address it. So
All right,
whatever,
you're going to have to speak up.
HB 2001 does not address that. Whatever today's existing process is tomorrow's existing process.
Okay, thank you.
Question, you got a question?
Well, we're at the beginning here, so I'm kind of confused. So the Senate Bill 458 goes hand in hand. They're not one area this works in, one area that works in. Anything, the House bill, they'll all be, it's all together.
Yeah, House Bill 2001 was adopted in 2019 and it defined what middle housing was. The next legislative session, they said, and we wanted you to be able to divide it through a very simple land division.
And then you said there at the work session, they're talking about there are financial ways of doing this. So you said waiving or deferring SDC's construction or potential construction excise tax. What was the middle thing you said?
Property tax exemptions. So one
okay.
thing the city could look at is if a qualified affordable housing project may have work with the county to adopt property tax exemptions. That could be an example.
All right.
Is the city commission or the planning commission having any sessions with builders to get public input on this?
One thing our consultant team did do is they worked on stakeholder interviews and developers who build single family homes in Oregon City, because we don't have a relevant supply of middle housing developers right now, but also developers in the metro region who do middle housing. That was part of their stakeholder interviews. And they are on our contact list.
Okay. Christina, do you have what you need from us, or do you need some specific direction? Was it more of a presentation?
No, just more of a place where I wanted the planning commission to really feel prepared when you get next meeting's agenda and there's lots of links and you get to sit down that one night where you read all the links. I wanted to kind of be a place where you were prepped and you felt a little bit more comfortable kind of diving in. And as always, this is a legislative process. There's no ex parte contact. You can talk to each other. You can call me. You can talk to your neighbors. You don't have to divulge that as part of a legislative process.
Any chance we can get that agenda packet sooner than the 7th?
No, as my consultant is finaling everything.
And there will be proposed code in that next meeting, okay.
Some of the code will not be there because it's really going to be dependent on your policy direction, but a lot of the code that is not will be in there, correct?
Thank you.
More questions for Christina before end that agenda item? Okay. All right, we have nothing left unless we have more communications.
Would just like to congratulate Aquila. I'm at a regular job.
Yes,
Thank you. Thanks.
I think we made the right choice.
The only other thing I just want to mention, I think I mentioned it a couple of times, but just mark your calendars for April 12th for the joint meeting with the city commission.
April 12th. Okay.
Yeah, that's where we go back over OC 2040.
The March 14th work session, who is that work session with? That's just us. Okay, all right, okay. So the April 12th is with the city commission. All right. Okay. Else? We're adjourned.